Welcome to Bleav in Colts, where Lawrence Owen and DeQuell Jackson brings you everything about the shoe.
What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen. With me, as usual, is DeQuell Jackson. Man, this is not the start that Colts fans were hoping for walking into the 2021 season, DeQuell.
No, not at all. If I would have bet everything I own that the Colts would not start the season off 0-3, but we saw it coming. We talked about it plenty of times on this show, and with the inconsistency, with the availability of your key guys being available, it's hard to overcome it. It's hard to overcome it when your quarterback is constantly under pressure, constantly under fire, and your starting center and your starting, all-pro guard isn't available, and T.Y. Hilton isn't available. All these key guys are very vital to the success of this football team, and they haven't been available. And right now, as we talk offline here, this is the time where I've been involved in teams that started off 0-3 far too many times, and I know what's happening. That chatter within that locker room, you're going to have chatter about what we can do better. You're going to have cliques of guys that want to lead by example. And this is a pivotal time where your leaders, the guys that you paid, the guys that call themselves leaders, practice extremely hard. Do not deter yourself. Do not change the way you've gone about preparing for the mid-level guys, the starters, to see that, no matter the circumstance, we can still go out here and I can stay focused and prepare as well as I did if we were 3-0. So that's going to be an important aspect of this football team and the psyche of this football team and how they perform on Sunday coming up.
Yeah, it's massively important that the leadership of this team really steps up and don't let, the depression of starting now 0-3 kind of spread like a disease throughout the locker room, right?
Yeah, and it will, Lawrence, because the coaches, they come in, sadly enough to say, the coaches come in not really juiced up and they have an attitude, and I've always hated this about the NFL. Anytime you lose a game, coaches come in with an attitude. They talk about moving on to the next week and they say all the right things in front of the camera, but internally it sucks because the life is sucked out of them. It's like we can only have a good time and only smile if we win the game. And it drives you crazy, and it's not a really good motivator for your team. I want a guy, particularly Chuck Pagano, when we would lose, listen, he told us everything we needed to know what we could have done better. But the one thing about Chuck, he was consistent week in and week out. And I'm not saying Frank Wright isn't, but the head coach obviously has to be the motivator. But it's just an eerie feeling around the building that you want to just knock this winless dust off your shoulders, because again, you put in a lot of time in the offseason, OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and now you still haven't reaped any rewards or result from all that time you spend in the offseason. So it really plays on you mentally. I'm just worried that the Colts, with all the issues they have, all the bodies, Quentin Nelson may be a guy who may not play this week. And it's all signs are pointing to that due to a high ankle sprain. But not in a million years that I think the Colts will start off 0-3 at this point.
No, and you were talking about that playing on the head coach. You could kind of see it in his Monday press conference. His demeanor when he's out there and he has optimism. He's optimistic about players. He's optimistic about the team. And then you go and immediately he's like, he almost never smiled at all throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, it was depressing. It was hard to watch. And I also watched Matt Eberflus's presser this past week, and literally the things he talked about, I mean, it's day one stuff he talked about, running to the football, and he talked about this is one of the things that he mentioned, Lawrence, that I've heard coaches say to our team, our unit, our defense years ago in Cleveland when we didn't have a chance in hell. They talked about stopping the run. Well, he mentioned something, and this is not an indictment on Eberflus. I just think I'm hearing the same type of rhetoric that I heard when things start to go south. Is as a football team, as a defense, you talk about stopping the run first and allowing your team to play left-handed. And now, obviously you can send your pressure, you can open your playbook up, things work to your favor from a defensive standpoint. However, the thing that he said to me that caught my attention was in terms of, the running game, Tennessee's running game. Well, if you look at our average, if you take out the runs from the quarterback runs, our average was below 4 yards. You're reaching. You're reaching, man. Like you're reaching. I've heard that before. No, tell the guys how it is. The quarterback running the football is part of stopping the run. That's part of, from a fundamental standpoint, your rushers are out of sync. They're giving up either outside leverage or not running down their proper rush lane. So you have to correct the problem where it is. You can't create this theory of you actually played a lot better than you actually did, because at the end of the day, all that matters are wins and losses. And, you have to find a way to get out of this hole they're in.
So there's a lot of question marks. Obviously, Colts Nation, Twitter can be a cesspool at times. We all know this.
Yes.
And, I run Twitter quite a bit to help, kind of get the feel of fans and everything.
Right.
And from what I'm gathering, they're just as frustrated as everybody else. I mean, it's pretty obvious.
No doubt.
But the thing is they're not just questioning whether or not, the head coach is making the right play calls now. There other decisions outside. Should they have started Carson Wentz this game? What's going on with Jacob Eason? Why is he now all of a sudden not the backup? And the practice squad guy, Hundley is now the backup, things like that. There's questions going on all over the place. And I personally, I don't know what answers to give them, because I'm questioning it as well, and I find myself in a very rare situation, because generally what Frank Reich is talking about and doing, because he's generally pretty straight, and as of late he has been most of his answers are very vague, and he's doing and saying things that just seem off. I love that Carson Wentz is a great competitor. The fact that he's going to go out there. Even, he said he woke up every night in the middle of the night in agonizing, throbbing pain from his foot, all the way up until game day, and yet he was still allowed to go out there and play the game.
Yeah,
that's a question right there.
It's definitely a head scratcher, because I'm with you on that. The guy's banged up, and if you think he's going to get healthy by playing the game, when you have issues from a protection standpoint on your O-line, it's not going to happen. He's not going to magically just wake up and get better. So you have to take a chance and sit him out. Sit him out a game. Let Jacob Eason or Brent Hundley come in. You devise a game plan. You let everyone know, listen, Carson's going to be out. Now you have to coach. Now you have to really dive deep and coach and see what guys you do have and what they do. The guys that you do have available, what do they do best, and have that be your game plan. Because right now they're scratching for answers. And I know as well as anyone, no one wants to be 0-3. Those guys are doing whatever they possibly can to get themselves out of this hole. Now, playoffs, that's a different story. You got to win the week. Now you're talking about winning the day, winning the week, and then you look back a few weeks from now, and hopefully you're in a better situation than where you are now. But, this team is scratching for answers, and I think Carson Wentz has again proven what type of competitor he is and what the game means to him. Because, listen, I feel for the guy. He wants to be the guy to save the day. But right now, he thought he walked into a situation that was a lot different than the Philadelphia Eagles. And things haven't been going as planned. So I agree. Some of the decisions that's been made, head scratchers for sure. But one thing is for certain: if you're a coach, Carson, even a hobbled Carson, gives you the best chance possible, and that scares me because that means you don't think highly of Brent Hundley or Jacob Eason to get the job done and work the quarterback position efficiently.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's the scary thing, because I mean, from what I saw from Eason, I thought he was making very good progress through preseason, through training camp. I understand that those 5 snaps, at the end of the Rams game was not very good looking at.
No,
I mean,
no,
but at the same time, that's just 5 snaps, and then in a situation that was not.
right,
He didn't practice for that. He didn't
right,
nothing.
right.
So there's difference between being thrown in a situation and planning and practicing for it.
No, no doubt,
So
no doubt. He didn't
uh,
have a chance. He didn't have a
mm-mm.
chance those 5 games. And I Bleav he threw a pick if my memory
Yeah, the
serves me
Jalen
correct.
Ramsey. Yeah.
To Jalen Ramsey, you don't throw to his side. Like the guy, it was a close game. He was trying to keep his football team in the game, and it happens with no practice schedule or no practice time with the one. So difficult situation to be in.
Speaking of close game, in both losses in week 1, week 2 against Seattle and against the Rams, I not only felt like we deserved to be in both of those games, I felt like we could have won both of those games, especially the Rams game. I felt like there was a lot of points left on the board. In this last game against Tennessee, I felt like we had no business being out there on the field with them. The whole game, to me, it felt like we were outmatched this game. Now, whether that has to do with all the injuries and the fact that Carson Wentz was out there hobbled and all that other stuff, but the defense did
Yeah,
not look, the part. They were getting ran over all the time. And
right,
I
right.
mean, at one point in the second half of the game, neither of their star receivers were on the field. Julio Jones and AJ Brown didn't even play in the game, and Julio went out with an injury, and we still couldn't stop them. They had a guy you played with, Rodgers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he was out there making plays,
Yes.
and
Yeah. You know what? Because these two teams know each other, if all things were considered equal and if Colts had everyone healthy, I would say it'll still be a close ball game. However, you alluded to some points that were, again, head scratchers, kind of disturbing. And I'll say this, I'll defend the defense for 1 second, and just to put this out there so people understand how the offense affects the defense and vice versa. Well, when you have a good defense that's underperforming at this time, you're 0-3, and all the injuries that's happened on the offensive side of the ball, it affects your defense. It drains your defense. And Darius Leonard was a guy, obviously, he wasn't healthy he walked into the season. He had he still has playing with a hobbled ankle. It affects your defense. And when you're not winning, the psyche that goes into that, it's like when things start to come up throughout the course of a football game, it's like your brain goes to, oh, here we go again. This is the time where we're going to start to lose this game, because at one point it was a close ball game. It was 10-14, I think, late in the third or the fourth, but then things kind of got out of hand. From a defensive standpoint, Henry just was Henry. There was a play that everyone watched that when he just bulldozed Darius Leonard. And it was, that was indicative of what the game looked like. They flat out just manhandled us. And Carson Wentz was under duress, at pivotal points of that game last week. You get in the red zone and you can't convert, and vice versa. Our defense has to be better situationally. Third downs, you can't get off the field. Red zones, you're giving up touchdowns. And what seems to me, listening to Matt Eberflus address his defense, the hustle and running to the ball isn't where it needs to be in order for them to play championship and winning football. So there's a lot of different things going on with this football team that needs to be addressed. And what I will say is, this week they are playing someone they're very, very familiar with, and Jacoby Brissett.
Mm-hmm.
Jacoby Brissett is known for not really taking the top off of any defense through his arm. There's going to be a ton of intermediate throws, so that could work to the Colts' favor, right? It's like you play man-to-man, you force him to come off his first read, you make his fourth read and so forth. But, this team is really, really underachieving. Yeah, we can make excuses about the injuries, but a well-coached team, a well-coached team and a well-prepared team, can find ways to win one out of these 3 games. So that's concerning in its own right. But this team has a lot of makeup work to do, for sure.
All right, so you brought up Jacoby Brissett, so I guess that means it is time to discuss week 4. And I have been sitting on this question since Monday to ask you.
Okay.
And it's something that I have always wondered from a player standpoint, especially a defensive player standpoint, because I know what a quarterback is going to say.
Mm-hmm.
But in your opinion, when a defense that knows the opposing quarterback as well as this defense knows Jacoby Brissett, and then vice versa, Brissett knows this defense, right? Who does that play more in favor to, or is it a wash?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Initially, I say the quarterback will always have that advantage. But it can go either way. I hate to say it's a wash, but I feel like the quarterback, because he has the ball in his hands and he knows not only this from a schematic standpoint, but he knows bodies. He knows how guys react to certain balls, whether they want to jump things, whether you can hit them with a certain route combination. I think the advantage goes to the quarterback, but as a defensive player, knowing you're playing against a guy who you've, seen prepared throughout the course of a year, and he's been your quarterback, his weaknesses, what his strengths are. And again, I feel like I'm talking myself out of my original response of it not being a wash, but you perk up when you play a guy that that you understand how he plays the game, his arm strength, his cadence, how to get off the football. So this game, you bring it up, I think this game is going to be very close because of that reason, and because of some of the things that their O-line is dealing with from the Miami Dolphins O-line is dealing with. Bleav they're giving up the 3rd most sacks in the NFL right now. I don't know what that number is on the other side of the ball, but I would imagine it's probably close to it. And from a defensive standpoint, hell, that's a good question, man. I don't know if I can answer it completely. I don't know. You look at, you have one guy that's familiar with, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I want to say defensively, but how many guys, they don't have the ball in their hands. They don't know the quarterback knows, the tendency of Matt Eberflus, how he calls the game, whether you're in the red zone and what are his gotta have it plays, so yeah, that's a great question, man.
Could Matt Eberflus take advantage of this and play calls that maybe he knows Brissett will not be expecting, knowing, Brissett being on the team, knowing that Eberflus is one of those guys that just likes to send forward generally and sit guys back and play that zone or whatnot, play that. Do you think Eberflus, this is a game where Eberflus could really send a lot of pressure, a lot of extra bodies in order to really mess up Jacoby and what his expectations are?
Yeah, you have to break your tendencies. You have to, as a coordinator, especially early on and throughout the game, you have to break your tendencies, because guess what? All week long, Jacoby Brissett has been in defensive meeting rooms talking to the defensive coordinator, and telling him all the scout reports on Quentin Nelson and all the guys that he played with, and with the offensive side. He's been meeting with them, letting them know, okay, this guy does this guy does that. But if you're right, if I'm Matt Eberflus, you have to break your tendencies all game. Because if you're a quarterback, I don't care whether you've been a starter, backup, you know the game better than 90% of the guys on your team, because it just takes that amount of effort to play the position. I do think, it's gonna. That's why I love this game, because it is a chess match. It is a game within a game. You play the chess match back and forth, and that's why I said earlier, this game is going to be a lot closer than we all think. I think, you mentioned earlier that, the Miami Dolphins are thinking this is going to be a blowout, or whatever the case. And I don't think it will be that. I think, there's a lot of different factors that plays in this part. You look at their defense, Miami Dolphins defense, they got some crazy record of being able to turn the ball over in 25 consecutive games. They did it last week with an 82-yard pick six. So there's a lot of different factors that plays a part. However, to get back to your original question, Matt Eberflus is definitely going to have to change things up. I mean, you have to at this point. You can't keep running the same style of defense that you ran the last 3 weeks. It hasn't worked for you. You got to switch things up. You got to put guys out of position. You got to mix things up. You got to, play more guys if need be. And you definitely have to start to dive into your coach's library in your head. Do I stick to who I am, or do I try to get the best out of my guys that I have available? And it may trend towards changing things up and breaking my tendency.
Yeah, that would be absolutely great, because like I said, I mean, if you think that Miami's only got a good defense and our defense should be able to shut down that offense, you're not realizing the weapons that Miami and Jacoby Brissett has to throw to out there. I mean, they've got 3 really, really good receivers. And I'm sorry, Mike Gesicki is a solid tight end. I love he don't get targeted enough as a tight end, in my opinion. I think that he's kind of our Jack Doyle, but
Love
the
Jack
younger
Doyle.
Jack Doyle, what I mean?
Love Jack Doyle, man.
But I think Gesicki might have more explosiveness than what Doyle, because Doyle was never known to have that big play in his pocket.
Right.
He was always that security blanket. You need that catch on third down. Give it to Jack. Right. He's going to catch that ball.
Love Jack Doyle. One of my favorite players I ever played with. One of my favorite. And if I could one of my favorite, and I told Jack this when I was there, man, I was like, Jack, out of everyone on this team, Andrew Luck, Reggie Wayne, Rob, I was like, you're my favorite freaking player. Favorite freaking player, man. If you can see this guy work, Lawrence, brings his hard hat every single day, and he's never injured, even though he is. The guy plays through any and everything. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go on that tip, but he's one of my favorite people, man.
Did you have that bracelet or whatnot?
I did.
Yeah, what would Jack
Doyle do? Yes, I had it. It's around here someplace. But yeah, he was my favorite player, man. You respected the way he played the game, and he was definitely motivated. Everyone needs a Jack Doyle on their team. Everyone does. Just a quiet assassin. But as you mentioned, you talk about, if we can get back to football.
Yeah.
And you talk about the weapons Miami has. I'm with you.
Waddle, Parker, now Fuller, who's been having a really good year, and then of course Gesicki, I might be mispronouncing Gesicki. It might be Gesicki. I'm not 100% sure. I hear it pronounced either way. So
yeah, I'm not even going to be the one to try to correct you. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But this game is, it's a home game for Miami. This is really, if Frank Wright can get this team and motivate this team to come out, and despite all the things that's going on, you still have another week, right? You can win with the guys you do have. And, you lean on, Jonathan Taylor and Naheem Hines just got rewarded a new contract, 3-year contract. And, let's talk about, moving Marlon Mack. There's a lot going on with this football team to not allow them. Every coach talks about, the main thing being the main thing, and that is focusing on your opponent. And there's just so much going on with this football team that I don't think they're necessarily equipped to deal with. And, obviously injuries been a big focal point of that. But, Miami, they're definitely going to have their work cut out for them. But I honestly feel like if the Colts can get a victory, it's going to be this week.
See, we've been talking about, the fact that both teams are dealing with injuries, especially, like across their offensive line and their quarterback position. But something I want to bring up, because I've heard this brought up a few times over the years, and we've seen it during games when they happen down in Miami, and that is the hydration part of the game, right?
Yes.
How important is that for a player, when going down to Miami and playing football?
Yeah, I tell you what, my first year in Indianapolis, 2014, and obviously I was with Cleveland before, and we played the AFC North. So pretty, after September, October, the weather's pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
The year I got to Indy, we had to play Jacksonville, Florida, which I grew up a few hours, north of that place. And I didn't hydrate. I had my normal, I hydrated, but not more so than what I needed to, because I just completely lost track of what it felt like in September to play a game in Florida. And it's a huge advantage. A huge advantage, cramping, taking salt tablets before the game, making sure you're hydrated. And a lot of guys, you don't really, guys are slow to pick up on things until it happens to them, and playing down in a climate like that is no joke, man. It is absolutely no joke. And it hit me. I cramped up the first time playing in that climate, a handful of years or so. But it's extremely important that everyone hydrates, because that, you want to be available. You don't want to create more issues than what you have to, if you can just, hydrate and take care of your body and do all those things. Because when that climate hits you and moving at that pace that you're moving at, and they're used to it. The Dolphins are used to it. They practice in it. They deal with the heat in August and all that good stuff in training camp and OTAs and mini camp. So that could be it's always an added advantage for the home team anytime you play in Miami during this time of the year.
Yeah, you hear a lot about advantages for home teams with certain teams, like Denver being the altitude.
Ooh, that's another one. That's another. And I have a sickle cell trait, and so I don't know if you remember years ago, Ryan Clark, who was playing for Pittsburgh Steelers. We both have sickle cell traits, and it affects me differently than it affects him. And he couldn't play because of the altitude, just would have potentially killed him.
Yeah.
So for me, when I would go to Denver, we've talked about it before, I lived in my hyperbaric chamber. Like, that was hyperbaric chamber, basically, just oxygenates your body. And it was something that, you're able to, inhale twice as much as oxygen, right? So I would have to do that more so when we played in Denver, because I could tell you, even though I did all those things, the minute you get off the plane, for the people watching and listening, if you've never been to Denver, just fly in and walk down the airport, and immediately within like 10 steps, you realize you're exhausted. So definitely a huge advantage to play in Denver. Oh my gosh. It is. People try to not make it a big deal, but when you're playing a sport that deals with you running around and getting exhausted and all that good stuff, it affects you at every level.
Wow. So that's kind of odd that, certain teams have that advantage due to location. That's all it is. It's where they're located, right?
Yes, no doubt.
So going into this game, what are some keys for the Indianapolis Colts in order to walk into Miami and walk out with a W?
First and foremost, you have to protect your quarterback, no matter who it is. If you have to, simplify your offense and max protect, that's something that needs to be done. You have to max protect, and you give up, multiple guys in route combination, but at the very least, you keep your quarterback upright. So if you can protect your quarterback, protect the football, because as we mentioned earlier, Miami Dolphins, they have a knack for creating turnovers. If you can, protect the quarterback, protect the football, and you make it a close game, I think that will give the Indianapolis Colts a great chance of winning this football game. And, if you look at the other side of the ball defensively, I think you bend but don't break. If you can somehow play better in one of those situational areas whether it be third down or red zone, your chances of winning that football team goes up, because now you've created more opportunities for your offense. Because last week, I believe the first half, the Colts offense had less than 30 snaps, which was mind blowing. So if the defense can pick up the slack in one of those situational areas, whether it be third down or red zone, I think your chance of winning the game is key. And protecting the quarterback and protecting the football, I think you do those three things, you have a great shot at winning the football game.
Yeah, a lot of people want to talk about last week and that Jonathan Taylor only had 10 carries. You got to remember, the first half, the Colts only had the ball 10 minutes. 10 minutes is all they had it in the first half. And, all the way up until the fourth quarter, when the Titans made that a 9-point game.
Right.
The play call was somewhat, it was like 23 passes to 17 runs, total, which is not terrible. But then once we were in the fourth quarter and they got that 9-point lead, then the play calling went 13 passes, 1 run, and you kind of understand why, because of situational football.
Right.
Don't let that happen this game.
That's no doubt. For us to play to our strength, you need to control the clock.
Mm-hmm.
You have to control the clock, and that's you go back last week. That's what Tennessee does best. When the horses start to run, you minimize the effect from the opposing offense. And as you alluded to, the situation of the game dictates how you play call. If you're up, which everyone likes to be, you're up. Now you can go down your play sheet. You can call as many runs as possible. Keep the other offense on the sideline. Things are great. But when you get behind, you're forced to throw the football. And you cannot. This team is not good enough right now to play from behind and be forced to throw the football, whether it's Carson Wentz or Brent Hundley or Jacob Eason.
Well, even throwing the football against this secondary, it's not a wise idea. You want to be able, but the thing is, Miami knows this too. Miami knows that the Colts are having issues on the offensive line and that the quarterback is hobbled. They are going to attack that. And there is no question in my mind that they're going to be sending the kitchen sink, to stop the run this game and force Carson Wentz to beat them through the air, which is their game on defense,
Right.
So it's a scary situation. The Colts offensive line are those guys who are going to be out there. Like you said earlier, Quentin Nelson probably won't be playing, Braden Smith probably won't be playing. Eric Fisher will be on a snap count, right? Like he has been the last couple of weeks. You're going to have Reed at guard, most likely. You're going to have, I can't remember the guy, the right tackle that the Colts had. Not the guy that's been playing left, not Davenport, but they had another guy that played right tackle last week.
Not Braden Smith, right?
No, not Braden Smith. The guy who came in for him.
Oh, crap.
Oh, man. And I am recording, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry, guys. But either way, these guys are going to have to step their game up. I mean, and I understand that it's difficult to just say, step your game up. But
that's the cycle of the NFL. That's why the guys who are paid what they're paid is for these moments. Obviously, you want those guys to not you don't want to be in this position, but this is why you pay the guy. This is going to show these next 3 to 4 weeks who's going to be able to block out the noise and go play the game of football and not let the circumstance dictate how well they play. Mm-hmm. This is every coach, every scout, every GM around that building are watching every one of those guys, because you're going to see guys fall by the wayside. You're going to see guys rise to the top. And I give credit to Darius Leonard. He's been, as much as he's been hobbled, he was able to he forced a fumble last week. He's been active. So I got no problems with his style of play. However, guys like him, even guys who aren't playing, if Nelson isn't going to play, which all signs points to that, you need to be just as vocal and just as involved, even though you're not playing the game of football, just to salvage the season. So I've passed this test many a times in Cleveland. Many a times. And I've had many conversations with past GMs who told me, it's like, hey, listen, when things go bad, we're looking for the guys we're taking note of the guys who aren't all in all of a sudden. Even if we pay them a little bit of money or not, we're looking for those guys. And trust me, you better believe every Tuesday or whatever day the Colts bring potential free agents in, that's going to be a revolving door this year. Because with all the injuries or what have you, and you have to do what you have to do. But it's gonna be very interesting this weekend. I'm looking for guys like Michael Pittman. He's shown he's been a guy that you can depend on. So there has been some bright spots here and there, but we just have to see more of it.
Yeah, there's other players. I think that a lot of people, a lot of fans want to discuss, well, obviously we need to run and we need to have a quick passing short game, right?
Right.
To get the ball out of his hands quickly. But at the same time, doing that, the other team, just thinking of it as an offensive play caller, the other team knows this. There are going to be times when you're going to need to ask your offensive line to step up and protect the quarterback for a little bit longer to get a couple deep shots downfield to loosen that up, take advantage of it. Because if all you do is quick outs and slants and things, you don't want to be repetitive against this defense. They are opportunistic. They will jump routes. They will create turnovers. You got to make them pay for creeping up on you. And make them feel like, oh crap, they still can take it over the top occasionally. We got to, keep that in the back of their mind. And, guys like Paris Campbell, who has not been really a factor so far this season, and I can't lay that whether it's on him or if it's on the coaching. Are there play calls played to get him open and get him the ball? I don't know, because quite frankly, I don't have the all 22 right now because Game Pass is being stupid. But, you can watch the stream, the broadcast of the game, and you don't know everything because you only get so much of the field, right? And you don't know what the safety look is, because they're off screen. You don't know what the receivers are doing past 10, 15 yards down the field because they're off the screen. So it's very difficult to get an overall look at the play call on both sides without that all 22. But I think whoever's fault it is, they need to change things up and do something, because in this game, if we don't make shots and not just make shots, but get some completions downfield.
Right.
If we don't get those completions, they're not going to be afraid of it, because you could throw the ball downfield, but if it's not completed, that's not really going to scare them, not really.
There's so much, this team definitely has their work cut out, right? Like we can all agree there. I think you're right. The fact that this team needs to be aggressive from a play calling standpoint. They need to at least attempt the ball down the field and try to create some big play opportunities. I think that's what they're missing right now. They need a spark early in this football game, whether it be from the special teams unit, whether it be from the defensive unit, but we're looking for the offensive unit to give this football team a spark. And that's throwing the ball down the field, taking the top off the defense. And you're right. If we think we can just go walk into Miami and dink and dunk and call a methodical game and not attempt to throw the ball down the field, no reverses, not change it up, break our tendencies, this defense will take the ball from you. They've done it in the last 25 games. They had a pick six for 82 yards from a linebacker, for Christ's sake, last week. So this team is not only going to bring pressure, and if you sit back and think you're going to be a statue or a tree, in that pocket, they're coming after you. So whether it's Brett Hundley, whether it's, Jacob Eason or Carson Wentz. And I think this game, for me, will really determine how the coaches are going to move forward with this football team. Because if Carson Wentz goes out and takes another pounding, now we have to start pointing the finger at Frank Wright and this offensive assistance of, okay, what's best for our football team? Are we going to continue to put a hobble guy out there and get him battered? And we know with Wentz's track record, at some point his body isn't going to be able to hold up. So what can we do to minimize that? How can we be effective in other areas and take the ball out of his hands and minimize his ability to get hurt? So I think definitely we have to make an assertive effort to get the ball down the field. Bring the trick plays out. I know, teams are, anytime you see teams doing trick plays, it's like a sign of, okay, they really can't figure anything out right now. But hell, aren't we trying to win a game? Do whatever you possibly can to win a football game. Fake a punt, do something, a spark will juice this team, still an extra possession. Do anything you possibly can right now to bring energy back to this football team.
Yeah, because, you're not walking into a lackadaisical Miami Dolphins team. This is a team that had playoff aspirations as well walking into this season, and they're staring down the barrel of 1-3 if they lose.
Right.
And the Colts are looking at 0-4. So both these teams have their backs to the walls right now, needing this win in order to get their season back on track to where they wanted it before the season started. So, they got their work cut out for both teams. Now we're coming down to the end of this this stream. I just want to say congratulations this past weekend for you. I hope everything was really, really awesome.
It was. I couldn't ask for a better weekend to be considered a Browns legend. I had an opportunity to spend time with Jim Brown, one of my favorite people in the world. This guy, funny story about him. He actually, when I was in the building, this is my one regret, Lawrence, is the fact that I never followed up with Jim Brown, him teaching me how to play chess. And I brought it up to him when we were at the banquet. So he was like, yeah, I'm always available. And I was like, no, I'm not going to bother you, man. I'm not going to do that. But anyway, it was a very special weekend. I had a chance to address the Cleveland Browns fan base, the Dog Pound. It was a great for my son to be there. Just great to be around, ran into Joe Thomas while we were there. Just a bunch of former teammates and current guys I had a chance to speak with. So very, very special weekend. And to top it off, my wife threw a special birthday dinner with some close friends and family that surprised me there. So it was a very, very great weekend for me, to say the least.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear. I'm glad you had a really great weekend because I'm just somebody to have a good weekend is always fantastic. All right, so let's get into score predictions. I guess we're about now at that point. This is a scary game to think about because there's so many factors walking into this game, so many factors, and they're unknown factors.
Right.
Who's going to be playing? Who's going to be out there? Who's still dealing with the injuries? what are the coaches going to do? You know, all this stuff that we had discussed for the last half an hour while we were discussing the game. I do think that this is the game that the Colts finally realized their backs against the wall. You could see the frustration in Darius Leonard's press conference after the game. He was madder, than the Hatter. That's straight up. And I think he's going to bring that energy, and it's going to feed the defense. I think the offense is going to not want to let Carson Wentz down because of what he's been doing, and the fact that he's out there putting everything on the line. I think the Colts find a way to finally win a game. Yes, a lot of you probably think there's no way the Colts are going to go 0-4 because just that's how they've looked and blah blah blah. I think last week was their lowest of the season. Mm-hmm. I think last week was they hit that bottom, and now it's time for them to start rising up. And I think they're going to get back on their feet, at least get on their hands and knees, getting up off the ground, because they took one in the chops like Darius Leonard did. I think they're going. I think they're going to scratch and claw and fight their way back against Miami. And I think this is a game where the defense against Jacoby Brissett is actually going to play more of in their favor than in Jacoby Brissett's favor, especially with Matt Eberflus, as we discussed. I really do believe this is a game that the Colts can win. They just got to really will it to happen. They got to go out there on an individual player basis. Each individual player has to will this game to happen. I think they will. I'm going to go. I don't think this is going to be a high scoring game though. No, I maybe 17-14. I think now that I'm looking at it, a game I think it's going to be close. It's going to come down to maybe the final drive. I got 17-14 Colts. What are you looking at?
Yeah, so pretty much been undecided because, as you mentioned, there's so many different variables that plays a part in this game on both defenses, both offensive lines, quarterbacks. The Miami isn't playing with Tua. He's out, but Jacoby Brissett is a proven veteran who can will your team to victory. He's going to know where to go with the football. That alone leans me towards the Dolphins. But then you look at the other side, we're waiting for this offensive line and this offense to show just show us just an ounce of what how you're capable of playing, whether you have all your guys healthy or not. And I look at our defense, where our defense has been underperforming, rightfully so, because they've been drained by the offense really being sputtered around and not really protecting the quarterback, all the different issues that we talked about. However, and it's difficult to lose. You have so much urgency and energy to play a division game that you lose. And in the fashion they lost, you would assume they would bring a different type of intensity this next week. When you go down, you're playing away, you're playing in Miami. This is a chance to make a team pay for, you being 0-3. However, with all that being said, I think the Colts don't have enough. I don't think they won't have enough for this football game. Again, not for lack of talent wise. I just think the elements, I think not being at home, I think because of Jacoby Brissett and the Miami Dolphins knowing that, hey, if we can hold on for a few weeks or whatever the case may be, we could potentially get our starting quarterback back. And I think this team is going to thrive and lean on their defense to pressure Carson Wentz and this offense and put constant pressure on them. And I think it's going to be too much for our offense. And I do think, in the end, I have to lean towards the Dolphins in a close game. And I'll go, and I had them winning by 3. and you went 17-14, I'm going to go 13-10. I do think it's going to be this game won't be entertaining to watch. I think there's going to be a lot of punts going back and forth, and whoever wins this football game, which I'm going with the Miami Dolphins, it's going to be on a punt return, or something big is going to happen unexpectedly. And I just don't think both offenses are equipped to just, from the first quarter to the fourth, just to consistently just put pressure on the opposing defenses. But I know I said a whole lot there, but in the end, I think Miami comes away, 2-2. Unfortunately, our Colts 0-4 with more things to figure out moving forward.
Well, you probably are calling it how the majority of people would call it, because you watched the game last week against against the Tennessee, and it just wasn't a good game. We're just not seeing any spark. So,
and that was the game, right? This team. This team last week. You play them twice a year. So if you were going to get a victory, it was going to be a tight game. This was the moment to do it. Get a division win and carry that momentum over to the following week. It pains me to see this team go through this, knowing the talent they have, knowing how close, heading into the season, the expectation of, we added Carson Wentz, a young guy, he can resurrect his career under Frank Wright, when he was operating at an MVP level, to see that just kind of squandered away. And it's not anyone's fault. It's just the way the game is played sometimes, So you got to take the good with the bad, and hopefully they can salvage what's been, an underachieving season thus far.
Last week, when we did our predictions, I had said that the Titans were going to win 28-17. And then right after we got done recording, I recorded with Bleav in Titans. And he explained to me about their offensive line woes, and I changed my score to 24-17. I was 1 point off on both ends of the score, right?
Right.
So I'm hoping that my streak of wins, because I've been right the last 2 weeks. Now, they were both losses, but I was right the last time. I'm hoping this streak continues, and this time I'm right, and the Colts actually get their first win of the season.
Yes. That would do a lot of people in that building some good, because there's a lot of great people in that building that's been around the game of football for a very long time. Yeah. And so when the entire team is struggling, they're struggling as well. And that's why Indy has always been a beautiful place to play.
Yeah, this is a game, again, something that wasn't brought up. The interior of that offensive line for the Miami Dolphins is very young, inexperienced, and prone to making mistakes. And this is a game I feel like that Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner can really put their stamp on, So looking forward. Like you said, I don't expect a lot of fireworks in this game, but at the same time, I love watching the defense. I love it when the defense is playing well. It gets me fired up. I can watch a 13-10 game and be excited about watching it when there's a bunch of defensive plays being made, especially along that front seven. If you're getting a lot of TFLs and sacks and quarterback knockdowns and things like that. A lot of big hits, on running backs and stuff like it. It could fire me up big time. So hopefully the Colts will go down there and, just kind of put a wrench in the Miami Dolphins plans. And I was told that if the Dolphins, by the guy that I had on my podcast over on Colts Law yesterday, TD Fins Talk, he said that if the Dolphins lose against the Colts, Watson will be signed within 3 days. We'll be traded for. So,
right. That's a fair play. That's a fair play.
You know what? That would be a double win for the Colts. If they were able to beat Miami, get their first win, and then get Deshaun Watson out of the AFC South, I'm all for it.
Right. If he has a chance to even play at all this year, because that's a whole nother conversation that, is very serious. But,
DeQuell, thank you so much for spending another hour with us today.
Yes.
Why don't you tell people again about Athletes Unplugged and where they can find you?
Yes, so you can find Athletes Unplugged, which is my very own podcast, at wherever you consume your podcasts. And basically, I'm having former coaches, players, current players on, and we get to unplug a bit and talk about more about their story as opposed to their football story, which we're all familiar with. So it's a great time. I'm usually smoking a cigar or drinking some wine or drinking some whiskey, but it's laughters. There's some seriousness to it, but in the end, I think it's entertaining and you will enjoy it. And you can catch us on IG at Athletes Unplugged, and you can find us on Twitter at Athletes Unplug. So there you have it. I hope you guys can join us. It's great times.
Hey, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can find the link in the description of this video. And if you're listening, go find me on YouTube so you can go check out the link directly in the description of the video. Any final words?
You know what? Even though I predicted the Colts would lose, I'm still rooting for them. So don't hate me out there, Colts fans. I'm just calling it how I see it. But I hopefully the Colts can get themselves out of this. But I just don't think this week is the week they're going to do it.
Fair enough, man. I chose the Colts to lose, like I said, the last 2 weeks. Just you got to call it as you see it. Be honest with yourself and everyone else. So thanks so much, everybody. Please don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, tag that notification bell. And if you're listening to this, please make sure you download it and go check us out on social medias at Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever it is, and share this with your friends and family and on your social medias. The best advertisement is word of mouth from guys and people like you. So thank you. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That's DeQuell Jackson. And as usual, have a good one. Go Colts.